This video is going to show you how to use magnetic black powder to uncover fingerprints on various materials. To start with, let me show you what some of the materials are going to look like. In this Petri dish, I have some magnetic black powder, and if you kind of look at it, it may be hard to see on the video, but compared to the standard black, this has more of an iridescence to it. It's very shiny and pretty due to the iron shavings that are mixed in with the carbon black powder to give it those magnetic properties. So it looks a little bit more graphite or dark gray in color compared to the standard black. Just to kind of show you, there's the deep, rich black color of the standard black. But the magnetic powder is also going to need to be applied to the surface somehow. But we're not going to be using one of our filament brushes this time. Instead, we're going to need a magnetic powder wand. And so this is kind of a cool tool. It doesn't look very much like a fingerprint dusting wand at all. But essentially there is, within this plastic casing, there's a piston here that kind of retracts and goes down. And at the end of this piston is a magnet. And you can imagine how tricky it would be to get the magnetic powder off of your actual tool when you were done using it. And so when the magnet is at the base of this, it's still going to have enough of a magnetic pull to the powder. But when we no longer need the powder attached to the wand, we can just retract this piston and pull it back so it's away from the edge, and this will block any of the magnetic powder from moving with the magnet, and it will drop back down. So let me show you, because this is really satisfying. If I place it in the powder and give it a little shake so a little excess comes off, look at how the magnetic fields kind of create its own little filament brushes, almost like a little spiky disco ball here. And again, when I'm done using this as my brush, I'm simply going to hold it over my dish and pull this piston up and away from the edge so that the powder simply drops back down into my original source of the powder. So it still acts as a brush, but it is a magnetic wand that we're going to be using to search for our fingerprints. So for this one, let's try a piece of acrylic. So I have this acrylic block. I'm just going to apply a fingerprint to make sure that we have something to search for. I'm going to tap my magnetic wand down into the magnetic powder, give it a slight little shake. And now we want to make sure that when we dust over the print, we don't want the plastic base to come in contact with our evidence and potentially scratch it and obscure any fingerprints. We want to make sure that it's only the little dustings of those filament lines that have appeared that are going to be coming in contact. So you almost kind of hover over it. And this one's coming out really nice right away. And you can kind of see that outline, that nice elliptical shape of a fingerprint just from this magnetic powder. It's a little bit harder to get a swirl or a twirl in like you can with a filament brush, but you can still use some of that kind of rotating pattern to try to really get into those grooves of your fingerprint. So when I'm done with this powder, I'm just going to pull up on the piston and it will drop the excess powder. What I really like about magnetic powder is even though it's messy like the standard black, when you have the wand emptied, you can kind of skim over and collect any excess magnetic powder that's kind of in your way. So I'm going to close this up so I don't spill. And we are going to lift this print now in much the same way that we were able to lift with the standard black. So I have a lightning lift here, and it just has a tab on the top that is not sticky. I can hold on to this black tab, and then I can take the bottom part and peel away this top layer that will give me a sticky side here that has not been contaminated. So I just flip this over And I'm going to set it down on one side and apply light pressure from one side to the other, effectively kind of pushing out any air bubbles so they don't get trapped. If you'd like, you can use some sort of hard surface. In this case, I just have like a pan scraper that I like to use to kind of go over and just make sure that the lightning lift or whatever lifting tape you're using gets a chance to really stick to that fingerprint and adhere so that when you lift it up, you don't leave anything behind, because you really only get one chance to lift this. So I'm going to peel it slow and steady and set my evidence off to the side. Get my fingerprint lift card, where I can now, again, starting from one side, press down and work my way over. And we have successfully used the magnetic powder to lift a print from a piece of acrylic evidence. One more, let's do a piece of, here's just a piece of laminate wood. So I'm going to use my same materials. I've got my magnetic powder. I'm going to lift some up, give it a little shake so the excess comes off. And let's just place a fingerprint here. In real life, investigators obviously don't know where to search for the fingerprints. So they're going to be, dusting all over, looking for any fingerprint that's going to slowly develop. So that one came out pretty fast. So I'm going to drop my powder, and then I can just kind of hover over it to pick up any excess powder that I've left behind to clean up my workspace. Cover it. And let's lift that print. So again, I'm going to hold on to the tab part of my lift and peel up from that corner, that cover, so that I can then apply it over from one direction to the next. Use my scraper to really make sure that we don't leave any behind. Grab that tab, give you a nice grip, lift upwards, and you can see already we have that print. So I'll get my lift card and apply it, make sure it's down really good. And it is now ready to send to the lab for some evidence analysis.